Lynn Sells was a notorious American serial killer responsible for murders, assaults, and rapes spanning over 2 decades across multiple states. His life and crimes reveal a disturbing insight into the psyche of a violent criminal. There are systemic failures that allowed his rampage to persist for years. Born on June 28, 1964, in Oakland, California, Sells endured a childhood of instability, neglect, and abuse. His father abandoned the family shortly after his birth, leaving his mother, Nina, to raise him and his siblings. Nina was reportedly neglectful and emotionally unavailable, often leaving the children to fend for themselves. At 18 months, Sells and his twin sister contracted meningitis. Sells survived, but his sister died, an event believed to have left a lasting psychological impact. At age 7, Sells lived with an aunt in Missouri, where he later claimed he was molested by a babysitter. By 14, Sells dropped out of school and began a life of vagrancy, crime, and substance abuse. This set the stage for his violent future. Sells started his killing spree in the 1980s, though the exact number of his victims remains unknown. He confessed to over 70 murders, though only a fraction of these claims were corroborated. His crimes were brutal and random, with no consistent modus operandi, making him difficult to track. One of his earliest murders occurred in 1985 in Forsyth, Missouri, where he shot a man named Thomas Knuckle during an argument. In 1987, Sells murdered Ina Court and her 4-year-old son Rory after luring Ina to a secluded location, sexually assaulting and strangling her, then drowning Rory. Throughout the 1990s, Sells roamed the United States, hitchhiking and committing violent crimes targeting transient individuals, families, and random victims. His methods included stabbing, shooting, and strangulation, often mutilating his victims. His crimes demonstrated extreme brutality and a deep-seated rage. Sells was captured on December 31, 1999, after murdering 13-year-old Kayleen Harris in Del Rio, Texas. He broke into the Harris home, stabbed Kayleen, and attacked her 10-year-old friend, Crystal Searles. Crystal survived and provided critical information leading to his arrest on January 2, 2000. Sells confessed to multiple murders, though investigators doubted many of his claims. His DNA linked him to several crimes. Convicted of capital murder for Kayleen Harris's death, Sells was sentenced to death in 2000. He spent years on death row in Texas, continuing to confess to various crimes, often frustrating authorities with inconsistent details. On April 3, 2014, he was executed by lethal injection at the Texas State Penitentiary in Huntsville, declining to make a final statement. Sells' story highlights systemic issues. His abusive and neglectful childhood likely contributed to his development as a violent offender, emphasizing the need for early intervention. His transient lifestyle and random methods made him difficult to track, exposing gaps in communication among law enforcement agencies. His numerous confessions complicated efforts to determine the true scope of his crimes. Survivors like Crystal Searles showed remarkable resilience despite unimaginable trauma. Sells remains one of America's most notorious serial killers, a grim reminder of the devastating impact of unchecked violence and the importance of systemic efforts to prevent and address such crimes.